Hey, it's Dr. Ray Powell. What we're going to talk about today is a concept that I have that's quite amusing called the blood sugar roller coaster. And so what we're going to describe initially is what I call a typical American. And when you look at your life, you have to tell me whether or not you fit into these different potential examples. What we're going to do is say, okay, let's say this is your day. This is when you get up. This is when you go to bed. If you go below this black line, you develop low blood sugar. And everybody thinks of the typical shaky, jittery, feeling of low blood sugar, which is pretty dramatic. What we're talking about is many other symptoms, and here's a whole list of them. Tired, sleepy, lack of energy, lack of concentration, crankiness, hunger, cravings. There's all kinds of different symptoms. Even headache can be a low blood sugar. So what happens with a typical American? So let's say this dotted blue line I'm going to draw is going to be your blood sugars. So when you wake up in the morning, you haven't eaten since the night before, so your blood sugars are nice and low normal. The green line that I'm going to draw here is going to be your insulin levels. So your insulin levels are nice and quiet. The pancreas is asleep. And then what you do is you grab a breakfast of champions, a Snickers bar and a Coke, a bagel and an orange juice, a bowl of cereal. So what do you think happens to your blood sugars? They go sky high. So the pancreas is sitting there minding its own business, and it says, oh my God, there's a whole bunch of blood sugar. Insulin, you need to go to work. And so you hypersecrete insulin. So very quickly, what your body says is, okay, who needs the blood sugar? Insulin's very powerful. It talks to every cell in the body. And it says, okay, brain, do you need some blood sugar? And the brain says, sorry, boss, I got plenty up here and I don't store much, so I can't help you. So insulin goes, okay, muscle, take up this blood sugar. Turn it into a little bit into quick release sugar, and the rest I want you to burn for me right now. And the muscle goes, sorry, boss, I haven't been doing much lately, and I'm sitting behind a desk, and I stored a whole bunch of quick release sugar yesterday, so I can't help. So insulin says, okay, fat and liver. Pick up this extra blood sugar. Turn it into blood fat for me. Save some in your liver so your liver gets nice and fatty. And the rest, fat cell, I want you to store it for me. And they both say, we can do that for you, boss. We're good at it. So very quickly, guess where your blood sugars go? Maybe even within an hour, your blood sugars come crashing down. So guess what your brain tells you need to do? Eat. But some people don't. And they go hours and hours running on empty. Other people will grab another snack. They'll grab something on somebody's desk, a piece of candy. They'll go to the machine. They'll grab a piece of bread or some crackers or a granola bar. So guess where their blood sugars go? Through the roof. So insulin doesn't even have time to take a break. The pancreas is still spitting it out and it stays up for hours. So very quickly, guess where your blood sugars go? And you can see what we're getting at here is some people live on this blood sugar roller coaster for years. Okay, how do you think they'll feel? And the problem is that people don't get it. Is that with the insulin levels being this high, anything underneath this curve that you eat, guess what your body wants to do with it? It wants to store it. And people also are never described this story is what happens to the blood sugar when it comes out of your blood. And what happens is your body is turning it into fat. So every time your blood sugar is coming down, you are in a storage mode. Okay, so if you were to simplify this into a very basic sentence, if you have a high carbohydrate, you are increasing your blood sugars, which increases your insulin levels, which equals fat storage. Now, what some people do, though, is they don't eat for hours and hours. And it takes a while, maybe, a good 5 to 6 hours for the insulin levels to start coming down, but you're still running on empty. And then you grab your lunch, which for most of us is not exactly all protein. So it'll bring your blood sugars up a little bit, but your insulin levels are still high. So guess where it drives your blood sugars? Even lower. And then people will run on empty through the afternoon. Eventually they get home. And guess what they are? The big H word. They're hungry. And when they smell the blood of the beast, get what they want to do with it. They want to eat. And so they end up saying that they just kind of nibble all day long, but then they eat a lot here. And this is the worst time of the day for food for them, when actually the problem is what they're doing here is causing this. So the ultimate goal is what we need to do is right here. We've got to get your blood sugars to stabilize. We got to keep them normal, not low, not high, because it's amazing how much better you'll feel. And then if we can keep your insulin levels stable, then you're not in a storage mode. About 2 to 3 days of doing this, and this is kind of what it takes a little time. It doesn't happen all of a sudden. Another hormone comes out that nobody's ever told about. About 2 to 3 days, you're not feeding yourself enough, but it's often enough and good enough that you're spreading the food out. Another hormone is secreted by the pancreas, same cells that make insulin, and it's called glucagon. And glucagon does the opposite of insulin. So it's the hormone that commands us to release the fat back into the bloodstream and burn it. So that's the ultimate goal. And what they're finding now is really the carbohydrate load right here is what's killing us. So it doesn't mean that you can't eat carbohydrates. It's a matter of making sure that you spread the food out and that you're eating about every 2 to 3 hours, but it's got to be where the protein and the carbohydrates are at least somewhat equal. Because if you do that and you keep it relatively lean, you're going to stabilize the blood sugars. It's going to make you feel fuller longer, and it protects your muscle mass. And if you've already been privy now to the protein metabolism lecture I sent you, you'll see that this is what that protein metabolism equation comes out to. Now be careful, it can also be just a piece of protein, but with no carbs, but that could potentially still drive your blood sugars low because you're not having any carbohydrates, especially if you're trying to exercise. So don't feel bad about having to have something that's got some carbohydrates or put some with it. And we'll describe more about this, but this is another lecture that really gives you the idea of more and more of the concept of the word the sneal. And this is a very colorful, obviously figurative picture, but it's amazing where people will live down here or they live up here and then down here, and guess how they overall feel about the same, which is like crap. So this is what I call the blood sugar roller coaster blood sugar story and the glucagon story. This is Dr. Ray Powell. Eat right, live right, and feel right.